Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're situated on this great, big, beautiful blue globe floating through the void of God's creation. It is Thursday. It is the 17th of July, 2025. And as always, holding the mainstream media's feet to the fire because they lie, they manipulate, they propagandize. And guess what, media? All right, welcome to the Thursday edition of the WTF Reports. I'm your host, Dave vonKleist, and I don't even know where to start today. It's just a smorgasbord, a shotgun blast of information that's coming in from all over the world. And I don't know how we're going to pull this one out of the fire, folks. People have got to get educated. They got to start paying attention. And it breaks my heart. Because, you know, in the general population, I mean, I mingle, you know, a lot. I'm somewhat of a loner sometimes, but I do like to, you know, interact with people. And sadly, you know, most of the people that you come in contact with, those of us who are aware, those of us who have a 20 or 30,000 foot view of what's going on, I mean, all I can do is shake my head and just, you know, feel frustrated. And to be honest, the word frustration doesn't do it. I mean, it just doesn't, because, you know, most people are adamantly, belligerently ignorant. They don't want to know. They don't want to hear anything that's going to pop their bubble, you know, and it's sad because, you know, they love to complain about how bad things are, but they don't want to investigate as to why or how things got that bad. And I just don't get it. I just don't. Where's the American spirit? Where's humanity's spirit? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we've been, drugged or manipulated. Well, I'm sure we've been manipulated genetically, environmentally, you know, agriculturally, you know, intellectually, educationally. We've all been manipulated. We are all products of our environment. And, in order to work our way through this, somehow we've got to get rid of the exclamation point that's over our head that we think we know everything. I mean, I've said this many times before, you know, two different kinds of people in this world. People who have an exclamation point over their head, you know, I know, you know, and when they've got that attitude, the doors to their mind are closed because they already know, you know, you can't tell them anything. Oh, I already know that, you know, and so they're not going to learn anything. They're just safe in their bubble. Now, the other kind of people have a question mark over their heads because they want to know. They understand that we are all fallible. We are not omnipotent. We don't know everything. And we have the right to change our minds. We have the right to be wrong about something. And to be honest, you know, I look forward to being wrong once in a while. It's an opportunity to learn, to progress. But unfortunately, so many people out there, they've got these walls up. You know, the obstacles, the biggest obstacles to learning are ego and pride. You know, people don't want to admit that they were wrong. Mark Twain said it so many times, so many years ago. You know, it's always easier to fool people than it is to convince them they've been fooled. And they don't want to admit that they've been fooled, which is why we keep marching down the same path, doing the same thing, making the same mistakes, because we just can't admit to ourselves that we are fallible. And anyway, I don't know how we're going to pull ourselves out of this, but like I said a couple of minutes ago, I'm looking at a shotgun blast, a smorgasbord of topics here. And I want to start off with what's going on over there in England. People are starting to realize that, and it's not just happening in England, I must say. It's happening in Canada. It's happening here in the United States. It's happening all over Europe. Is that there people there, the indigenous population of the European countries and of Canada and of certain areas of the United States, they're being replaced, and they're starting to recognize it. You know, I mean, there's a lot of folks out there that are recognizing the fact that, you know, all of these Muslims that are, you know, coming into our country, into our communities, they don't have our best interest in mind, because when it comes right down to it, according to Sharia law, according to Islamic law, and again, this is not just a religion. People have to understand that. You know, the Nation of Islam is not just a religion. It's a political, they have a political goal, and that is to take over the world. As a matter of fact, there was somebody was interviewing a Muslim guy up in Canada, And you need to take to heart what this guy is saying. Listen up.
Would you like to see Sharia law in Canada replace Canadian law?
At some point it will. Because we have families, we are making babies. You're not. Your population is going down the slump. That's right? Yeah. And by 2060, according to Pew Research Institute, your research, by 2060, Muslims will be the biggest religious group the world over. What are you going to do then?
Actually,
are you going to oppose Sharia even then?
You do want a Muslim majority nation in the West End, correct?
Just like you had a Western majority nation in the land of Native Americans, one day we can have a Muslim majority nation here in Canada, right?
That's exactly right, and he's not wrong. Look at the birth rate. People are not having kids these days. At least not, we red-blooded, ma, dad, apple pie, red, white, and blue Americans. A lot of people are just not having kids. They don't want to bring a child into this insane clown world. And, to be honest, I can't blame them. If I was a younger man, thinking about starting a family, I'd think twice. And that's the way it is. However, the Muslims, no, they're popping them out like bunnies. And he's right. He said by 2060, the Muslim population will overpower. And people are starting to recognize that now. As a matter of fact, in England, there was a guy that posted, he calls himself Starmer Out. And he made a really good, kind of a terrifying point. Because, see, over there across the pond in England, over there in the UK, they don't have a Second Amendment right. No, they don't have guns. So what do you suppose they're going to resort to? Give a listen to what this British man posted. Here it is.
You ain't getting this story in the mainstream media, that's for sure. Crossbows, bows and prepping gear. Brits are not playing Robin Hood. They're preparing for collapse. Let's call this what it is. Brits are quietly arming themselves, not with guns or knives, but with something legal, silent and symbolic, the crossbow and bow and arrow. Now, these aren't just hobbyists. Sales have spiked since 2023, and prepping forums are flooded with people asking about survival kits, home protection, and yes, crossbows. Why? Because trust in the system is collapsing. You see, the government tries to gaslight us that crime's down, but we all know what we see. Knife attacks, grooming gangs, police too stretched to turn up. In London alone, over 800 officers were pulled from the streets just to monitor protests and political operations. And immigration? Well, since 2018, over 200,000 illegal migrants have crossed the channel. That's just the ones we know about, and most are undocumented, never deported, and young men of fighting age. And it's not just the numbers that worry people, it's who's coming and why no one seems willing to deal with it. So now people are taking things into their own hands legally. You see, crossbows don't require a license in the UK, and although there were a handful of tragic incidents, just a few deaths over 5 years, the government tried to clamp down in 2024 with a new licensing proposal. I wonder why. But it didn't work. Sales still rose because this isn't about hunting. It's about peace of mind, a quiet legal symbol of resistance. We are the land of Robin Hood, a man who stood up to corrupt rulers with nothing but a bow and a cause. Today, people aren't fighting the Sheriff of Nottingham. They're losing faith in a political class that protects everyone except its own citizens. The crossbow has become a statement, not of aggression, but one of readiness. Because when institutions fail, the British people prepare. Britain has a deep-rooted history of protecting this land from all kinds of invaders. And believe me, the British people will not stand idly by and allow their home to be taken over.
That's right. And that sentiment is being reflected here across the pond as well. You know, he did mention, that gentleman mentioned, yes, there are military-age males that are just flooding into their country. Well, they've been flooding into this country too. However, of course, it's been drastically reduced since Trump took office. But, the genie's out of the bottle. For 4 years, we had millions and millions and millions of quote-unquote refugees, immigrants coming into this country completely unvetted, undocumented, and just open the door, come on in. Yeah. So, a lot of folks here in the States are having the same sentiments as reflecting exactly what you just heard. We are preparing to defend our country. And I don't want to be called an Islamophobe or a racist or anything like that. But if that's their goal to take over, well then I'm not happy about that. I'm just not. And I don't think anybody listening to this broadcast is either. So, I mean, I don't know what the answer is here. All I could do is shake my head and say, really? Really? What's going on here? So, anyway, I wanted to touch upon that because this is slowly and incrementally starting to boil the frog. The Democrats, I don't know why they had it in their minds that this was such a good idea. Everybody's a human being. Everybody has rights. Yeah, I agree with that. But unfortunately, the rest of the world doesn't think that way. The United States, we have our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, and that's what guarantees, supposedly, and I say that with quotation marks, that's what guarantees our rights. But then again, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Anyway, I wanted to touch upon that because, yes, people are prepping for conflict. And I don't want to see that happen, but I don't know. There's a certain level of inevitability that I'm looking at now. At anyway, now I want to switch gears a little bit here, and once again remind you, as I have done so many times before, that the globalist agenda is to drastically reduce the human population on this planet. And I mean drastically. They want to eliminate 15 out of 16 people, the way the numbers work out. Right now, we're looking at a world population of somewhere around 8.2, 8.3 billion people. And according to the Georgia Guidestones, of course, that's unsustainable. The Georgia Guidestones stated clearly, and I quote, maintain humanity at no more than 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. So that's 500 million. So what are we going to do with about 8 billion people? How do you get rid of them without looking like an evil supervillain? We got plenty of those too. But so how do you do that? We have the hokey pokey thingy dingy, which is doing has been doing a good job, but we don't even know what the long-term effects are. And as a matter of fact, I got a couple of quick clips here. Let me see. Okay, this woman is Kim Overton, and she's basically saying that what we're looking at is a modern-day Holocaust. Here's what she had to say.
We didn't realize what was happening early on. They kept telling us all of our patients were dying of COVID. It was not COVID that was killing any of these patients. It was the complete and total medical mismanagement of COVID. It was the remdesivir, ventilator, death. Wash, rinse, repeat. This is what we were seeing over and over happen in these hospitals. And I'm far from the only nurse that can tell you this. I know that you've interviewed Nicole Siratek. She could tell you what was happening in hospitals that she was at. Nurse Erin, same thing. So it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see what has become of this.
Can I share something with you, Nicole? I thought I knew a lot. I mean, I've had name a doctor, Dr. Judy Mikovits, Dr. Brian Artis. I mean, I've literally been brought up since 14 days to flatten the curve by some of our.
We didn't realize.
I don't know what happened there, but it's sort of miscued here.
Stunned me. You know what she said? And I want you to emphasize this point, and we're going to say it to this audience too. She said they ordered 35,000 ventilators. She goes, how come they didn't order an equal number of feeding tubes?
Okay, I'm going to pause that right there. That's a very important point. Remember during COVID, they said they were having an emergency production of these ventilators. And, of course, they were distributing remdesivir like candies. Well, first of all, remdesivir is manufactured by GlaxoSmithKline. And, of course, they have shareholders in that company, and many of them happen to be members of the National Institute of Health. Yeah, Tony Fauci. Let's see. Shareholders, shing. Remdesivir. And remdesivir has a 53% mortality rate. 53% of people who get on the remdesivir are dead. It creates organ failure. So why the heck would they make that the protocol? Now, getting back to this issue about the ventilators, Yeah, that was the protocol for COVID patients that went into the hospitals. They put them on remdesivir. They put them on a ventilator. Now, what you just heard from Kim Overton, she said they ordered 35,000 ventilators, but they didn't order the feeding tubes. People on a ventilator have to be fed by feeding tubes. Otherwise, you starve, a slow and agonizing process. Well, if they ordered the ventilators, but not the feeding tubes, that means that they anticipated the patients dying before they would starve. You got it? Let's let this continue.
Interesting. That's a good point.
I was stunned by that. I'm like, That's absolutely right. And she broke it down. She said, you can't put somebody on a ventilator without a feeding tube. They're going to starve to death. They will die.
Correct.
And that is an indisputable fact, is it not?
Yes, it is. Again, I emphasize that. If you don't feed somebody, they're going to have a slow, agonizing death. But they anticipated that. They'd be dead long before they would starve.
Yeah.
Wow.
I agree with her 100%. To see what was happening with, placing these patients on the ventilators. And again, they kept telling us, they have all of the nurses scared to death, telling us all of our patients are dying of COVID. Listen, if they were dying of the virus alone, why weren't we pulling bodies from homes? Why weren't we pulling bodies off of the streets? If you think about our homeless population, the only place anybody was dying was in our hospitals. And it's because they were dying of the treatment. They were dying of the treatment, the medical mismanagement of COVID, the remdesivir.
Okay, I'm going to pause it. Now, that's a very good point. If we had a pandemic, how come people weren't being hauled out of their homes, dropping dead, while they were shopping or, doing whatever they were doing and living their lives? How is it they weren't pulling bodies out of the public sector? Most of those deaths came from the hospitals.
Poisoning people. We were shutting down their organs. We were placing them on ventilators. Then they're getting secondary bacterial infections, and they are succumbing to those. They're getting blood clots because they're not being ambulated properly. We couldn't even get doctors and PT up on the floor to ambulate patients. People were too afraid. It was mostly just the nurses, and then the doctors would either come and look through the glass windows of the ICU and take the nurse's report. They were not going in and putting their hands. But a problem that was happening that people aren't talking about enough is how we were intubating patients, not because they were in distress, but in an effort to contain the virus. They were pushing for early intubation, knowing that 80% of the patients, or even more, 80% or more of those patients that were placed on a ventilator never made it off.
Did you hear that? 80% of those who were put on a ventilator died. They never made it off the ventilator. Oh, I'm sure this was just an unfortunate accident, yeah? Right. Well, there's a nurse, or I can't remember if she's a nurse or a physician, but her name is Polly Tommy, and she was testifying before Congress. And here's what Polly Tommy had to say.
The press and others consistently shout out that vaccines are safe and effective. They are, vaccinate your family. We all vaccinated our families. Everybody sitting here, bar two, vaccinated their families with catastrophic results. Over 12,000 signatures on those two buses of death, death, death. When will enough be enough? How many more buses? How many more children killed? How many more injured adults? And here's a question for you, the senators. Who is going to look after our children when we, the parents, are no longer around? That can't use a toilet, that will never date. All those things Dr. Hooker said. Our children are trapped at 29, 30 years old. They will never pay taxes. They need 24-hour care because of one vaccine, one moment in time. This is a national crisis that must be addressed. I want to thank Senator Johnson and his team for giving us this day that we thought would never come, that the world could hear really and truly what happened to the people of America who are broken. And this doesn't just affect the person with the injury, by the way. It affects the siblings. It affects the extended family. One of us has to be a carer for life. So this has to stop. and we implore you, please, to follow us at children's health events, at least break down the truth and get to the truth behind the science of what is really happening. No more Pfizer-sponsored science. We need independent science, and we need our pediatricians to stop getting bonuses for vaccinating our children.
That's absolutely right. And, I don't understand why, but we still have pharmacies and grocery chains that are offering free vaccines. Come on in, get your vax, get it, get your flu shot, get this, it's free. And people are still buying this. Why? Because the mainstream media will not touch these subjects. Now, you just heard Polly Tommy testifying before Congress, before Ron Johnson, and Ron Johnson was being interviewed by Maria Bartiromo in regard to this vaccine issue. Here's what went down with that particular conversation. Listen up to this one. Oh, wait a second, I miscued that. Oh, wait a second, that didn't record properly. Oh, shame on it. I'm just not a techie guy. All right, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to switch gears. Let's listen to Nick Holscher. Now, he's been making the rounds on a lot of these talk shows. He's saying that we are looking at the possibility of 100 million deaths in the long term as a result of these hokey-pokey thingy-dingies.
It's possible by 2030 we could definitely very well reach 100 million deaths as a either result or side effect of these shots. But concerningly, and what I think would actually be a larger contributor to loss in population size would be the mRNA shots' decimation of fertility, because we now know that it does destroy over 60% of women's primordial follicles, this non-renewable eggs. But that was an animal study, but a human study just came out by Manichi and colleagues that found 33% lower successful pregnancies in vaccinated women with a sample size of 1.3 million women. So as this happens, as women's fertility is destroyed and men's fertility becomes destroyed, population size will tank, birth rates will tank. 2025 birth rates are in, and they are extremely low. And this, so not only will we have the inability to regenerate the lost population, but we also have people dying as a result of the shots themselves.
Yeah, and by the way, for those of you who are producing these posts, lose the music. The music is too doggone loud. I heard there were some really interesting posts, and I want to hear what the person is saying, and yet the music is so doggone loud, you can't hear what they're saying. So for those of you who are, making social media posts and stuff, lose the music. Dump it. We don't need the music. I didn't click on it to hear what song you're playing. Anyway, that's just one of my pet peeves. Anyway, yeah, this whole thing with this hokey-pokey thingy-dingy, this has got some long-term effects. Obviously, we're just now starting to see the long-term effects. It's only been a couple of years, since 2021. It's been 4 years. Yeah, we've already got, we already saw what we got with the protocols and how many millions of people's lives have been directly affected, tens of millions of lives. But we don't know what's going to be happening down the road. Now, we're just now finding out about the spike proteins and the manipulation of your DNA. And by the way, those spike proteins are passed down to the next generation. And yes, they do cross the blood-brain barrier. This is just a big mess. And you know what? Again, I remind you, this is by design. The globalists want to reduce the world population. They're willing to do any and everything that they can. And that includes, and that's not just dealing with your health situation. What about the food supply? What about all the chemicals and, the stuff that they've been putting in our food and all the dyes? And I've been screaming about that for 30 years. And then, of course, we can start talking about the weather manipulation. Now, this is getting really crazy, folks. This is getting really crazy. I don't know what it's going to take. What's it going to take for Get America to get off their butts? People should literally be planting themselves outside their local city hall, asking, what are you doing? What tune are you marching to? Is this the Event 2030? And by the way, speaking of, I got this one here. I want to turn the clock back to 1992. We're talking 33 flaming years ago. And our wonderful representative from California, Nancy Pelosi, was talking about Event 21. Now, again, we're going back to 1992. Agenda 21. I mean, that was going to be almost 29 years in the future. That's how far ahead that they were planning this stuff. Here's Nancy Pelosi 33 years ago.
The Earth Summit Environmental Leadership Act, as this is known, presents us with an opportunity to follow up on the important work of the Earth Summit to develop its blueprint, Agenda 21, for global environmental action. HCON Res 353 outlines a comprehensive national strategy for sustainable development in accordance with the principles of Agenda 21 to be coordinated under the leadership of a specific office and at the direction of a high-level government official. The resolution also urges the United States to identify and initiate further agreements to protect the global environment and to support the creation of a high-level United Nations Sustainable Development Commission headed by an Undersecretary General. Third and lastly, the President is urged to report to Congress on the progress made on with this action. HCON Res 353 is supported by the administration. I have been in contact with the appropriate offices of the State Department and have incorporated their suggestions into the resolution. The 71 co-sponsors of this measure include one-half the members of the Foreign Affairs Committee and all of the House delegates to the Earth Summit. It is also supported by the major United States non-governmental organizations concerned with the environmental issues.
I'm going to pause it right there. You just heard her talking about the non-governmental organization, the NGOs. That's how long this has been going on. Yeah, the NGOs, USAID, etc., etc.
The Earth Summit presented world leaders with an opportunity that should not be lost. We must now embark on a new course that will sustain our planet and its resources for the benefit of future generations. This resolution calls on the United States to assert its leadership to achieve this goal. I urge my colleagues to support this resolution. Thanks again to the members of the Foreign Affairs Committee for their recognition of the importance and timeliness of this resolution. We must make the promise of Rio a reality. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Interesting. Okay, now, so that's 33 years ago, and she's pushing Agenda 21. Of course. All right, we'll get that caller right there. Okay, well, hold on there, caller. So this was 33 years ago. They had their globalist plan, and, you know, with this Event 21, in league with the WHO, with the UN, with the World Economic Forum, and if you want to get a little taste of what that means, as a matter of fact, caller, just hold on there. I got one more clip I want to play, then I'll take your call. Here is a woman by the name of Nass. Her name, I think it's Marilyn Nass. I forget what her first name is. But she was discussing what the goals are of the WHO. And you're not going to believe this. I mean, she said the quiet part out loud. Listen to this. This is what they're planning, folks. Listen, listen, listen.
We're undergoing a soft coup. And the idea is to create a whole new set of laws and ignore the existing human rights laws and other laws under the pretext of pandemic preparedness and the biosecurity agenda. The WHO is developing through all its nations, but with the WHO Directorate in the United States in charge, a pandemic treaty and amendments to the existing international health regulations that will remove the human rights protections currently embedded in the IHRs, will enforce surveillance, censorship, get rid of freedom of speech, require governments to censor and only push a single narrative. Also, we will be subject, if they can make this work, to vaccines developed in 100 days, which the organization CEPI is planning to do. And one of the people who founded CEPI was Jeremy Farrar, who is now the chief scientist at the WHO, to bring this forward. Other things that amendments do is to bind the states so they're no longer recommendations but enforceable edicts. Provide a liability shield, get rid of intellectual property rights, move supplies from one country to another, enforce digital passports, and the Director General of WHO can demand that a pandemic or a potential pandemic exists. He can just declare it with no standards, and then countries around the world will have to obey. Also, the WHO will tell you what drugs you can and can't use in your nation once a pandemic is declared. Obviously, the budget will increase. One Health is another part of this. One Health is a concept that was created to enable the WHO, with these documents, to take over jurisdiction of everything in the world by saying that climate change, animals, plants, water systems, ecosystems are all central to health. Also embedded in this concept is a peculiar notion that humans are no longer of greater value than animals.
This is insanity. Absolute insanity. I mean, they're telling you they're going to take over everything. Everything. And you're supposed to get behind it. This is madness. All right, let's go to the phones. Okay, caller, who are you and where are you calling from?
Cynthia, calling from California.
Oh, hello, Cynthia. How are you today?
Pretty good. You know, when you talk about the effects of the COVID, whatever, or dinky-dingy, Catherine Austin Fitz brought up summary of a pharmaceutical company executive talking about how they were going to be installing an operating system.
Yes, I played that clip about a week ago. I should pull that up again. That's exactly right. It's an operating system.
Right. So in the search for ways to combat that, because it may be that some of our sheeple out there are sheeple because the operating system is already operating and they can't act independently. We need to find ways to help them out. And I've encouraged you to look into methylene blue, which was reported to maybe break up the operating system. And there may be other substances that will do that also. Because I know that it's hard to research which companies have a viable, reputable product.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really want to go on Amazon and just willy-nilly buy something.
Right.
And you said you might have someone who could research it for you, and then I could buy the product from you. And I know you don't want to be, because of the power hour, you don't want to be a sales thing.
Yeah.
But we're out here floundering. You know, what can I do to help my friends?
Mm-hmm.
So I encourage you to do that, because at least you can network with someone like Scott Adams, who's got a lab, can verify products are what they say they are.
Mm-hmm.
Because so much of the time on Amazon, you're not really sure what you're getting.
Well, that's for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of copycat products that are out there, and they're not exactly what they tell you it is.
Well, the people marketing them may very well be patriots. I have an interest because I actually had brain damage from mitochondrial injury by my 40s. Thank you to all the mercury in my mouth from the dental industry pushing mercury at us.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother, not knowing that, not having discernment, which was hard to do with the lack of information in the 60s, so much control.
Yeah.
And we have to repair the mitochondria, and if it will do both, which her research suggests, then you'd be doing us a favor.
Well, I'll tell you what, let me check into it. I mean, I started looking into it, and I found that one of the main distributors out there, believe it or not, is owned by Big Pharma and the Rockefellers. And I said, okay, I'm going to take a step back from that. But, yeah, I will take a look into that, because I've been hearing a lot of good things about methylene blue. As a matter of fact, Mel Gibson was having a conversation with Joe Rogan, And he brought that up. So that's something I think we need to sit up and take notice of. All right, well, thank you for the suggestion, and I will do that. I will absolutely follow through with that. All right, my dear.
Listen, Mark, thank you.
All right, you take care. God bless. All right, yeah, well, speaking of this operating system, yeah, Catherine Austin Fitz and many others have been saying exactly that. And I touched upon this subject a couple days ago, maybe last week, this issue about the 5G. You know, everybody's talking about 5G, and this is why these towers are going up all over the country. Ever since COVID came in, the estimate is about 500,000 towers have gone up all over the country. Yes, it's for faster downloads. Yes, it's for better coverage and this and that. However, some of the cell phone techs, I've seen videos people post on social media. Some of these cell phone techs, they open up the phone and say, okay, well, where the heck is the chip that's supposed to receive 5G? You know, if this phone is supposed to receive 5G, it needs a chip. There ain't no chip. So what's all this crap about 5G? Why are they spending all their time building all these towers, and yet none of the phones are equipped to receive a signal? So what are the towers for? Wow. Well, guess what? There's a guy that was testifying. Somebody had a hidden camera. And anyway, I'm going to see if we can hear what this guy says, because it's a little bit of an echo. But anyway, well, let's just play this. You make your own decision.
What people haven't been told, I'm a weapons systems expert. These technologies were developed for the defence industry to attack enemies on the battlefield. This is not a telecommunications upgrade. The antenna design can be up to 100,000 times more powerful than a 4G antenna. 4G antennas radiate inverse square law. 5G antennas focus the radiation. Now, you'll be told by ICNIRP, etc., that there's no damaging effects from non-ionizing radiation. That is false. Non-ionizing radiation is used in lasers to cut stainless steel. Anybody that thinks that non-ionizing radiation that is focused in a beam wave is safe is being given a false egg. It's not correct. Public Health England have stated they don't expect to see any further increase in radiation from the deployment of 400,000 5G masts across the country. That is false. We're being misled by public authorities. Is very, very concerning. The fact that government are stating that health effects cannot be taken into consideration in planning is extremely worrisome. The fact that this technology is derived from battlefield technologies and has been deployed in battlefield. If you want to see some of the pictures that I have of people who've been attacked by this type of equipment on a battlefield, they're not very pleasant to see. If you look at the design of the equipment, it is battlefield interrogation equipment. It's basically radar that can then focus directly at your target.
So, according to that gentleman, we're talking about military-grade weaponry. So what are all these towers going to do? And what's going to be the effect on those that got the hokey-pokey thingy-dingy with the graphene oxide in there? And also, according to Dr. Carrie Madej and her research, and they're examining the blood samples of people who had the injection, that there are indeed nanotechnology, little nanobots in their bloodstream, little cellular size, and they actually look like a computer chip. And what happens is they start putting out these, well, for lack of a better term, tentacles. And these tentacles start to connect with other little circuits, other little nanos. So what's going to happen? What is this technology? What is it in the bloodstream of the people who have gotten the injection? What is this? And is it laying dormant until somebody flips a switch with some of these towers? I don't know. Again, I'm one of those conspiracy theorists with a question mark over my head. I want to know. And hopefully you do too. Anyway, I got to take a little quick break for the pause for the cause and remind you that this broadcast is brought to you in part by the Wave Watch. And again, if you haven't checked it out, you're doing yourself a tremendous disservice. Frequency is everything. That's what Tesla told us. And Royal Raymond Rife explored that particular philosophy and found that frequencies had a direct effect on cellular structures. Some frequencies would make cells thrive. Yeah, make you healthy. And other frequencies would destroy pathogens like fungi and bacteria and viruses. And yes, he started to categorize all these different frequencies and the effects that they had on cellular structures. And when the authorities found out, they crashed his place, smashed one of his microscopes that he had made, and they had confiscated the other, and they basically took all of his research and deep sixed it. Well, that was probably a good 70, 80 years ago. But since that time, people have rediscovered this technology of using frequencies to help the body. And that's what the Wave Watch is all about. It has over 1,000 different frequencies for all different kinds of situations. And I'm not here to say that it's going to cure or treat anything. This is for your entertainment and educational purposes only. But anyway, so you really do yourself a favor. Do some research on the Wave Watch and on Rife technology. And after you've been able to compile some information, you can't make an informed decision without gathering information. So I'm telling you, go on, go get that information. Go make your own decision. Because once you've looked into this, you'll understand what the Wave Watch is and why, you really, really would benefit from this. So if you decide that you want to do that, please go to our website, TheWTFReports.com. And there'll be a pop-up right there. And by the way, that gives you a discount, a 10% discount, or 100. No, actually, it's more than 10%. You get $100 off of the Wave Watch if you use the promo code RedPill101. So, hey, check it out. Go to our website, TheWTFReports.com, and check it out. All right, let's see. Following through with all this stuff about the hokey pokey thingy dingy, these injections, I just want to remind you that there is a trial that has started up in the Netherlands, in Holland, and the doctor, was his name, Jim Ferguson, has been reporting on what's going on, and this was percolating for several months, and the powers that be tried everything that they could do to stop this. They even went as far as arresting the main attorney who was pushing these cases forward. Anyway, here's a quick update on what's going on there.
Jim Ferguson reported from a court in the Netherlands. He witnessed history unfold inside a Dutch courtroom. Now, Arno van Kessel, the brave lawyer who was arrested without charge, blindfolded, and thrown into a maximum security prison, he was supposed to be silenced. But instead, his case just lit the fuse. The courtroom heard accusations of conspiracy, genocide, and bioterrorism, charges leveled against global power players, including, get ready for this, folks, Bill Gates, Ursula von der Leyen, Albert Bourla of Pfizer, Mark Rutte, and Klaus Schwab, and others. And there were nearly 200 pieces of evidence that have been submitted. Ted, have you any thoughts or insights on this one?
Yeah, this one's pretty interesting. One is that it's named these people particularly, so it's probably one of the first court cases that actually names the heads of these different organizations as they're the ones that are being charged. And I know that I remember reading months ago that Gates tried to challenge this one, saying that the courts in the Netherlands had no authority over him, and he was refusing to honor, the need to appear before the court or defend himself. And the courts ruled that no, they actually do have authority over him. And so he didn't win that case. The case was allowed to go forward. And then just a couple of days ago, the lead lawyer for this case that is being brought forward against Gates and others was arrested at gunpoint and apparently put into a psych ward and medicated. And clearly that was meant to derail this court case, intimidation, all those things. And it appears that didn't work, that other lawyers picked up the pieces and moved this case forward. And there was some pretty revealing documents that were brought forward to the courts. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes.
So what they're doing is that they're calling this Nuremberg 2.0, crimes against humanity. On a global scale. I mean, this is going to make what happened, after World War II look like a walk in the park. because they are going after all the head honchos. You heard some of the names: Bill Gates, Ursula von der Leyen, Klaus Schwab. I mean, all the big names, and they're all named in this lawsuit. So we're going to have to see how this is going to turn out. All right, let me see. Where do I go from here? Oh, yes. For those of you out there that are so, dedicated to supporting Israel, yes, Israel first. Yes, this, and I hate to say it, yes, this has become the United States of Israel. There's no doubt about it. But there is a, let me see, where is it? Yeah, the BBC reported the following. For all you Christians out there that think that the Jews love you, okay, that Israel loves Christians, listen to this. What's going to take? Smack. What do they say? Sometimes you got to smack the donkey between the eyes to get their attention. I don't know what it's going to take to get some of the Christians out there to finally get it. They say, oh, yes, Christian Zionism. Yeah, okay, that's insanity. Here's what the BBC just reported. Oh, gosh, dog it. That didn't work either. I don't know. Sometimes when I make an audio clip, it saves as a text instead of an MP3. And anyway, that's what happened to that one. All right, well, let's see here. Maybe I can find it another way. Let me see. Where is it? I save all of these posts. I tell you, my computer's an absolute mess. But, okay, here it is. Again, this is the BBC. Here's what happened just a couple days ago.
Well, some breaking news to bring you from Gaza. And 2 women have been killed and several injured after a strike on the Catholic parish in the Gaza Strip, an Israeli strike. And that's according to doctors at a hospital in Gaza City. The strike damaged the Holy Family Church. That's the only Catholic church inside the territory. Italy's ANSA news agency said 6 people were seriously injured, while the parish priest suffered leg injuries. Well, some breaking...
Yep, there's your greatest ally, folks. Yep, Israel's our greatest ally. Oh, my gosh. What's it going to take? How are you going to backtrack this? How are you going to backwalk this, networks? And I'm not just talking to ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, Fox. I'm not just talking about those networks. I'm also talking about Newsmax, OAN, Real America's Voice, News Nation, all of the conservative networks out there. How are you going to backwalk all of your gushing and just groveling at the feet of Israel? How are you going to backwalk this? I'm curious. What are you going to do? You're going to say you're sorry?
Sorry. We're sorry. We're sorry.
Yeah, we're sorry. Okay. The damage that's being done is just incalculable at this point. I don't know. Anyway, got a couple minutes left yet. There is one story that I've been following here, and you might want to check this out. Now, some of you may have heard that last March, there was a news conference in Italy, and it seems that some researchers had been doing some scanning underneath the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt, okay? And they had this super-duper high-tech Doppler satellite-controlled imagery where they could scan underneath the pyramid. And what they found blew their minds. And this was on, like I said, a news conference that they had last March. And they were saying that they had found that underneath the Pyramid of Giza, by the way, that's a massive structure. Well, there's a structure underneath that is even more massive. And there are these columns that go down, and they're saying that the entire structure that they were able to scan goes down over between 1.5 and 2 kilometers. At one point I read it was 658 meters under the pyramid. And these things are huge. But anyway, let me play a part of this clip because I'll run out of time. Here's what they're finding. Anyway, what happened is they did all this stuff, and of course all the Egyptologists threw their arms up and say, "No, this can't be. That's garbage. That's bad science." And they tried to debunk it. So they sent in another team with an attempt to debunk this first team. And what they found was even more. Give a listen to this.
This can't be real. You are not going to believe the follow-up scans that revealed what's really under the entire Giza Plateau. So back in March, these guys came out and basically told the world there probably actually are large megastructures beneath the Middle Pyramid of Khafre in Egypt. Massive pillars that go down up to 2 kilometers underground. A monumental discovery that initiated the Khafre project. Well, they released a follow-up presentation going over some new finds, and it just keeps getting more insane. They start off by debunking the debunkers, addressing concerns about the legitimacy of their technology that was used to make these discoveries. Synthetic aperture radar scanning, SAR, going into an in-depth technical explanation of how this technology works, calling it a way to listen to Earth from space, which is what it is. This SAR scanning method allows us to see what's beneath Earth's surface using a satellite in orbit, a truly revolutionary technology, but the experts came out and just shat all over it, claiming it to be not accurate at all and that we can't trust the results. Well, the Khafre boys just said, hold my beer, and gave us proof after proof of how accurate SAR really is for over an hour straight. From small-scale testing in their garage to real-world application on many sites and locations around the world, getting verifiable results time and time again. From tunnels in Nevada to a mountain range in Italy and the Mosul Dam in Iraq. Their SAR scans consistently show exactly what we expect to be there. They even show the SAR scan of the Osiris shaft in the Giza Plateau, a known causeway that runs between the Khafre Pyramid and the Sphinx, which accurately mapped out all 3 levels of the shaft with incredible precision, even revealing what they're calling a high-density structure over 2.5 times deeper than the current documented depth of the Osiris shaft, as well as a new unknown tunnel that appears to be running parallel to the entire shaft. Then they performed more SAR scans of the Giza Plateau, and what they found completely changes everything we know again, starting with verifying the Big Void above the Grand Gallery in the Great Pyramid of Khufu, a large isolated cavity recently discovered in 2017 about the size of an airplane that still has not been explored yet, which Egyptologists were also initially highly skeptical of, but now admit that it really does exist. We don't know what's inside this big void or what it was used for, and we haven't explored it yet out of fear of damaging it, but the SAR scans confirmed that it's there. Then the Khafre boys go on to reveal this: similar mega pillars as they found under the Khafre pyramid beneath the smaller pyramid of Menkaure, going over 1 kilometer straight down, with a chamber at the very bottom at a depth of 1.2 kilometers underground.
Okay, I'm going to stop that. I'm going to run out of time because this goes on for another couple minutes. But hey, listener, do you get how important this is? And they're estimating the structures down there are not just tens of thousands of years old, but very possibly could be hundreds of thousands of years old. Do you understand what this means? This changes everything. I mean, just everything. I mean, it's mind-boggling to think about the implications. Can you imagine what this is going to do to all the world religions? My gosh, if these structures, and obviously that would have to be done by a very technologically advanced civilization, and if there was a highly technologically advanced civilization or one of several civilizations, I mean, how far back does it go? I mean, this is obviously going to predate the New Testament. It's going to predate the Old Testament. It's going to predate all of the great religions. So we got to humble ourselves. And I can't emphasize that enough because, you know, not to wrap up this particular broadcast with a plea for folks to get right with God, but I mean, this is what we got to do. We are in a spiritual battle for the entire species on this planet. And if we're going to make it through this, we have to make our decision. Are we going to stand in the light or are we going to hide in the darkness? We have a lot of darkness to sort of work our way through. And I hope and I pray that everybody out there understands what I'm trying to say. I'm not here to convert or to tell anybody what to believe or what not to believe. But I tell people, hey, you need to go and look at yourself in the mirror. Look behind the eyes. Look behind the meat suit that you're wearing. What's the most important thing? Is your heart and your soul and your love. That's what's happening. That's what is most important, as far as I'm concerned anyway. All right, that said, once again, I humbly and respectfully request that you visit our website, do business with our sponsors, help us keep the lights on here. And if you are so inclined, you can make a donation with our GoFundMe account so we can expand the program. That said, it's going to wrap it up for this Thursday edition of the WTF Reports. I'm Dave vonKleist. I thank you for your listenership. I say thank you. I say God bless you. I say stay safe, stay free, and I will see you tomorrow.